Hey, what's up,
Hey,
Josh?
no, not much. Another day at the office.
Yep, another day at the office. No complaints though. This whole post-pandemic, working remote, I think is a good thing. So,
Yeah, I think it'd be really good to get some work done
yes, it's great.
without the drive time.
Yeah, right. When we go in, like for those drives, I'm sorry, for those like lunch meetings we have, like
Yeah.
I shower, which
Yeah.
takes some time, and then I get like dressed and then drive there, and then like I'm spending 2 hours just getting ready there and back. That would
Yeah.
have been productive work. Yeah, but that's
Yep.
another podcast, dude.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So you know what we're going to talk about today? The secret that everybody knows about, but they don't know about, and we're talking about ChatGPT specifically. We're talking about that right now. And so why am I saying that it's everybody knows about it, but they don't know about it?
Me? Well, I tell you, I like hearing people talk about it just like I just heard somebody at a coffee shop and they're like, hey, did you hear about that Chat GPT? And they're like, yeah, that's crazy, man. But they were talking about like how people talk about cryptocurrency. And I know I say that all the time, but it's like in the early rumblings of Bitcoin, I heard that, people would talk about it like this, this weird uncle, but they didn't know anything about it. They're just talking about it. I'm like, have you used it? So every time I hear it, of course, I go over and, I'm like, have you used it? Have you used it for this? Have you used it for that? And they're just looking at me like, and I'm like, I feel like I'm talking to my mom about how to use the microwave, because they're like, I'm like, it can do this and this and this. And they're like, yeah, and you need an advanced programming degree to do that. I'm like, no, you don't. You
Wait a
just
minute.
ask them.
What kind of microwave do you have?
Oh, no, we had this convection sharp carousel.
Oh no, you're talking about back in the day.
Back in the day, telling my mom about what it could do.
Yeah, so Josh, we need to find it and refer back because you and I did a podcast on something where you told that story.
Oh,
about
yeah,
when your
about
dad
Christmas.
got it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Okay,
Very traumatic experience.
But I'm going to go back to your crypto, and I agree, right? Because to this moment, most people don't understand crypto, right?
Yeah.
I'm not an expert at it, and so there's a hesitancy, there's leeriness about the whole thing, and there's a general lack of understanding that they're using to support their uneasiness, right?
Yeah.
And yes, I come across the same thing with AI in general. Is you and I did the episode on backlash where there's people like fighting it or kind of whatever. What's the phrase my grandmother say? Poo-pooing it. Do you ever hear that? Where they're poo-pooing it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's like you said, the crypto, they
I
don't know it.
people throwing poo-poo at it like a monkey. I'm poo-pooing it. I mean,
That's monkey GPT.
yeah.
That's a whole different one. Yeah. So yeah, I totally agree. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today, because it's the secret that nobody knows about, because everybody knows about ChatGPT, but oh my God, dude, they don't know what to do with it. Maybe it's overwhelming. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to slice it down to a few things that you can, actually do. And I think the important concept that we're going to get to is that you don't know what you don't know. And so if you take the time to explore what other people are doing, it's going to open the door for you. It's going to spark some ideas. And I wanted to share something that ChatGPT wrote for me that I think on how it learns that is applicable to how we can learn using ChatGPT or probably any AI. Anyway, so this is what it says. One of the ways that I learn, I being ChatGPT, is through a process called unsupervised learning. And that's where it studies a massive amount of data, but it's unsupervised. There's no human intervention. And what it's programmed to do is to look for patterns and associations that a human would miss, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. That's why it comes back with some responses that you and I are always like, I've been doing this for 20 years and it gave me 7 responses, 2 of which I would have never thought of.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so now take it back to all the people who are poo-pooing it. It's because they're not taking the time to study massive amounts of data, and they're not taking the time to exercise and using it. So we're going to go into some specific things that I broke down into 2 categories. One is I'm labeling it as low-hanging fruit for productivity, and the other is integrations.
Yeah. That sounds like a good, I like it. Let's do it. Let's tackle this bad boy.
All right, so we're going to do it. So the first one is, whatever, it's right in our wheelhouse. Marketing, content developing. So just give me an overview, Josh, of what that is and ChatGPT, using ChatGPT for it.
Well, just the content development in general, like we're always writing email campaigns, drip campaigns. We're writing copy for social media posts. We're writing taglines. We're writing sales pitches. We're writing, and this tool is so amazing. I call it brain dump. You can brain dump all your concepts. Like, I got a client that wants this, their business is called this, and they're located there, and they're trying to reach out to this demographic. And it just blows my mind every single time. And I just had a meeting with a gentleman who's about to open a new location, and he just gave me some particulars, and what it gave me as I read it to him, he just thought,
hold on, you did this, right? You did it like a little bit on the sly.
Yes, I did it.
Said it to him, and he thought you were being off the cuff, and then you told him about the AI.
Yeah. It's like, man, you're brilliant. No, I wasn't. I used robots. Now imagine, and this is coming soon to a theater near you, where it's in your ear, like you have it hooked up, where it's in your earbud. But and I think Otter just rolled out, and I don't want to get into tech yet, but Otter AI, Otter now has where it listens to your meeting and then gives you information. So you could say, hey, from that meeting, can you tell me, what I should say to this guy? I mean, it's going to be, and again, this stuff every 3 or 4 days is advancing at like years of technology pace. And that's what's scary to people. So, and that's what's also, right now, there's a lot of gadgets and people making, I feel some people are developing like apps that are going to be obsolete a week later. Like, that's okay. But for content, hey, it's working great for me.
Yes. And so I'm going to go into some content a bit deeper, because we started this by saying this is a secret nobody knows about because they don't know how to use it. So I just want to give some examples, right? And you said drip campaigns, right? So let's just be specific, right? So this is what you can do. You can say, I own a coffee shop and I want to get more business in the morning. And I have a database I've built up over 2 years of 2,500, recipients. Write me 6 emails that I can send out a week apart that entice people to come in. And the thing that people don't understand is it's searching for concepts, and it's coming back to you with those concepts. And when I just said that the ChatGPT studies massive amounts of data looking for patterns and associations, it's coming back from its learning that. And so one of the things that's really important that you and I stated earlier is, you know what? If you don't like what it comes back with, at the absolute worst case scenario, you're going to be like, oh, that's some really good ideas.
Exactly. Yeah, I've asked it for taglines, like give me 10 taglines. And then I'm like, whoa, I like 3 of those. Give me 10 more. Oh, I like those. Hey, can you make them more funny?
Is you did 10 and then 10 more and then 10 funny ones. Is I've done the same thing. And I'm like, I didn't like any of them. But you know what? 30 seconds later, I came up my own because it spurred so many different thoughts that I'm like, I didn't even think of that avenue to go of what it was doing.
Yeah.
And so for marketing content, it is phenomenal in delivering content you can use like you're 95% there or 100% sometimes. The absolute worst case scenario is that you're going to get 7 ideas that you're going to do your own.
It's really funny. And I used it for a friend of mine who wanted to write a job description. And it was like, I said, just keep talking, just say, and it was like, they've tried to do this before and they couldn't, it sounded like a role that made no sense. But once I documented all of it, or it was a role that was so specialized, but once I documented, once I put it in and said, can you write me a job summary for this position? And I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, I totally get this. I could see, 100 people applying for this job. But
Yeah.
prior to that, I didn't understand the concept. They weren't really articulating it. And it came up, it put it all together, and we were all like, it didn't need anything, which again, sometimes it does.
That's a good point. Like we make sure our prompt is descriptive enough so we get what we want, right? You and I talked about GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. But you know what? For something that's so well established, let's say you're looking for an HR director, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's been 1 million job postings for HR directors. The AI knows all of them. And so when you say, write me a job description for an HR director, it's probably going to be 100% on, but then you have the freedom to say, I want to make it where this is more exciting because we're a family here. You put all that in, and it changes it and changes it and changes it.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I'm glad. That was a good segue you did there, actually, because I want to talk about HR. And like HR departments, like that's the first, if I worked in an HR department, I'd be bringing this to my company right there to be the one that keeps my job. And I say that because of the productivity. Who was the HR manager could be taken out by the janitor with AI, like literally, because I use it for if I'm trying to write an email to one of our employees and say, hey, you're performing at like an 8 out of 10. You're excellent communication, but you're not hitting your deadlines. So I write that. I tell AI, hey, I got an employee performing at an 8 out of 10. They're excellent. They're great team. They work with the team well, but they miss their deadlines. Can you please write them an email and also include action steps they could take to get better at that? And it writes like, right from the legal department, the most beautiful. And then you go, you know what? Could you make it a little more softer? Like, I don't like the tone. Mm-hmm. And it writes it. And every time I've showed a manager that tool, they've just gone, oh my gosh. And you can just see them going like, and I'm like, I'm hoping you're not thinking how you can fire like 14 people in your office. No. But look how much more productive. See, I don't look at it, again, we talked about this already. We don't look at it.
I want to, two things. You and I don't agree. You're always on the side of saying people are going to lose their jobs. I think it's going to open up the door to be more efficient, that companies will be, better. But on the side about that content, the thing that I find so powerful, and that you were saying, if you were the HR person, you would quick do this and make sure you secure your job, right? Is what you and I talked about is you can create the content that's done. Say, write me an employee review for somebody who doesn't meet deadlines. Write one for this, write one for that.
Yeah,
write
just
one
have
for
them
this.
in your,
Boom, 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 they're done. And, you mess around at first, say, make it more personable, make it, this, right? So you get that dialed in, and then you, in the same chat session, because then the chat GPT knows your conversation and it becomes easier. You say, now write one for, an employee that, has this shortcoming and this one and this one. And so now you have an entire library. So if you have a company, it doesn't have to be Intel, but even if you have a company with 50 people and you have 6 managers, now you give every manager has the same pool of stuff. So it's more fair when you're evaluating employees, and it's not based on one manager being lackadaisical and the other one is this strict person. Right now, everybody's playing on the same field. They have the same advice. They have and it's something that most companies, I would say every company that we have right now that's a client of ours, and every company we're working for, they do not have a bank or a pool of HR content for this kind of thing. They don't have it, guaranteed.
Correct. Yeah, and it's funny too, because and that parlays into our next topic, which is correspondence. For correspondence, like in an HR setting, you can literally ask it, you can tell it what state you're in and laws, and like, please, cite. I've had it throw a statute in a correspondence I was trying to send out. I was like, can you please look at what statute that this relates to? And it threw it in, and then I had to Google it to make sure it was correct, because that is something.
I'm glad you put that part in there.
Yeah, I want to put that in there. It is learning. So you have to make sure that you're comfortable with what it's saying. But in correspondence, how many times have we tried to say something to someone and you're just like, I know what I want to say, but I can't articulate it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is excellent for helping. And again, just as a tool, just to help you. To like, you know, of course, everyone I heard at Valentine's Day, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I heard everybody talking about how they were going to use this to write love letters and stuff. I'm like, you're not going to fool anybody. But, you know, but great for ideas, you know.
You say you're not going to fool anybody. And
not yet.
So you and I just had a guest on the last podcast, and she's like, you know, when it comes to AI, you know, we want some people they have to do it themselves, so it's their own voice. And I'm going to argue that you can.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can make it your own voice. You can
you can say, hey, I speak in short sentences. I like to make witty observations. I like to do this. I like to do that. Now, write me this short email of this. And it takes it all into account.
You can give it samples of your writing and it will learn you.
Yes,
too.
That's good point. And so back to correspondence, Josh, I had to write an email today that I sent for you to review. And so that's what I did. I'm like, hey, I got to write this. I'm trying to persuade somebody to get on board with something. And I said, these are the things that I think are, you know, persuasive. And I said, write this in a way that's persuasive and add anything that you think would help. And it took me more time to type in my query, my prompt, than it did for it to spit it out. And it was so good that I was pretty much, you know, done. It was there. I will say one interesting thing. It referenced a fact, right? It referenced like it's a well-known fact that this, that, and other thing. And so then I said, tell me how you know that's a fact. Mm-hmm. And it did. It came back. And so I incorporated that, right? I used that in there.
Because George Santos told us.
Yes. Oh my God, dude. There was an interview with him with who's the English dude? Piers
Morgan.
Piers Morgan. Yeah. He was, I like him, but he was terrible.
Piers.
He was terrible.
Yeah.
And that Santos guy, whoo.
Oh yeah.
He's in a league of his own.
He probably controls space lasers. He probably has his own space lasers.
He might. So anyway, back to correspondence. It is really, really helpful. And this comes back to what we said in the very beginning is, you know, don't just, you know, dismiss it because you don't know it. Try it, you know, out. When we met with our most recent guest, and she was like, oh, it has to be her own voice. She's making that determination, but she hadn't used it.
That's what I'm talking about with like it's
the Bitcoin.
Like Bitcoin, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great analogy.
Yeah, it's the same way and again, she's a very accomplished, businesswoman, and it was the same thing. But all my friends,
everybody I've come across,
they're all like, and then I show them, and then they're like, they're more concerned. How did you get there? Where's that at on the site? It's like, you just got to find it. You got to mess around. Come on, I'll give you the link, you know? And it's like, and but I mean, think of the olden days of Google, you know, back in the 2000s, you know, when Google came out, I had people that would come to me. They're like, how did you find that? And it's like, they're not thinking when you search, ask what you want. And that's how this AI is designed. It's like, ask it what you want. Articulate what you want. Don't write a book. Just say the facts, like what you're trying to do. And that's how Google was too. That's how it's not critical thinking. It's literally like, get to the point and let it do its job. And you could massage it from there. Yeah. And then that was the thing I struggle with still at follow-up questions, making it, you know, give me some facts about that, you know, give me more information. Like you don't think you can there's things the other day I took a spreadsheet in Excel, okay, and I know there's Excel plugins and there's tools. You're skipping ahead to our integrations. I'm not talking about this. Was unintegrated. Okay? Unintegrated. I was brainstorming. Okay, I was brainstorming like that's our next segment. Yeah. So I took this set of data in, and I'm like, you know, what does this mean? Like, what does this mean in sales revenue? What does this mean? You know, and I thought it would go, oh, I can't look at this data set because it was literally just a cut and paste from a spreadsheet and it wasn't in any format. So other than CSV or whatever, however it saw it, like, but it was just text. And it totally figured it out. And instant, like within, like you said, 15 seconds, it was like, hey, that's a sales increase of 38%. And what I would do, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is
and back to it is learning patterns and associations that humans might not notice. And that's why I think you and I are constantly like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. That's a good angle. Back to what you said, I was talking to you earlier. I took a group project for a class, and I took all the grades, and I have to take the class, and I have to break it into 3 groups for a group project, right? So there's 3 different groups. So I took just the grades. So it was like, 69%, 74%, 78%, whatever. And I said, break this into 3 groups that is most fair and equitable, that not one group is stronger than the other. And so it did it, and then it explained to me why. And it's not a terribly difficult task anyway, right? But its explanation and how it broke down was different than I would have done. And I know it's different than what other professors have told me the way they've done it. And I'm like, oh, this is, good. I mean, I'm not changing the world here with that. I'm just making a breaking down into groups, but it was quick and it was easy, and it justified, it supported its decisions, and it's super powerful.
But when we talk, and with something like that, it saves time. You say it doesn't save time. It does save time. I mean, these are things that you're like, oh, it's so simple. If I would have did this, put it in a spreadsheet and all this, okay, that would have taken you, say, 8 minutes. Instead, it took you 30 seconds. So life is just a bunch of seconds. So it's like,
how many 8-minute things a day are you able to cut out? Yeah. And you know what, Josh, that's a good point, because if I would have did it myself, because I've done it, multiple times a semester because I teach, that course over and over. I do it, and then I'm like, okay, just let me look. And then I start thinking about each student, and I know this one's,
nothing ever is.
And a lot of it is subjective, and it's like, I don't need to be spending 20 minutes on this. And, and so you're right. That's a there's that book, The 4-Hour Workday. I know a friend of mine, he read it and he tried so hard to implement that somehow, but maybe we should have some segment that's saving your life 8 minutes at a time.
I'm real curious. I should check Mike Michalowicz, the guy who wrote Clockwork about business time management. I would love to know how he would implement this.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
It's probably like,
why don't you ask AI? Say, hey, Mike, whatever his name is, wrote a book on this. Do you know the book? It'll probably say, yeah. And then you'd be like, what do you think he would think about you? That would be interesting. I want to see that. So again, we're at a perfect segue into research.
Yep.
Yeah. Dude, the research is, I mean, if you're not doing it for research, you're really missing the boat, because people are going to take off above you. So I'm going to mention the content marketing, right? I mean, marketing content. When I'm doing that, I've also researched. I've asked, I'm like, what are some commonalities of successful drip campaigns? And you can Google this, but you get a way different answer here. You get a concrete answer. And then it causes a conversation, right? And then it gives me, I'm like, well, why is that? And it tells me why. And it opens my eyes to 1 or 2 new things. And after, 2, 3, 4 minutes, I've got 8 pages of stuff that I've just learned, and it's sending me down paths which are really helping me be 1, creative, and 2, more knowledgeable.
Yeah, I want to trap myself in a room for a weekend to do some art research with it. You and I discussed, we were looking some art history stuff, New York, and it was an educational thing. It was almost like acting like like things I would ask a private investigator to do for me. It actually did, and it did a bunch of art history that I would ask I would ask, ASU students and who are in the art to like, here, figure this out for me, and look in the catalog raisonné and figure this out for me. It was doing these things in seconds, but I found mistakes. So I questioned what I believed to be mistakes. So I kept asking it where it was getting this data from, and it was giving me books, and it was giving me references, and that's when I wanted to go down that wormhole, but I said no.
So real quick, we were looking at, we wanted to see if there was an association between two people in the 40s, 50s. One of them was famous, one of them was not. And so we asked it, what do you know of the association of these two people? And it came back with 5 or 6 things, and we fact checked it. One of which was like, there was nothing. It said that this person was in a book on chapter. Remember, it gave us the chapter and the page, and it wasn't there. And so we questioned it, and it was wrong, totally wrong. However, the other 4 or 5 things it said, whether they were 100% accurate or not, man, they opened up these avenues that were legitimate to start exploring and researching down there. So you and I fooling around for something that we've talked about for years for this topic, you could have been locked in a room and went off and started researching on that.
Oh yeah. And I'm really curious. I'm really curious when you do something like that too, if it's going to learn bad information. Like if you would bait, like not on purpose, but like or on purpose, if someone gave it bad data.
Not yet. So I've questioned that, right? So I was having this conversation with it, and it was wrong on some stuff, and I said, I don't think that's right, and then it said, oh, I'm sorry, I was incorrect on that, blah blah blah. And so then I asked it, I said, so if somebody asked you the same exact question the same way, are you going to apply what you just learned that it was wrong? And it said that it doesn't have that kind of engagement yet.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I don't want people to use it for the power of evil. I want it to use good.
It'll be funny. Yeah. You're chatting with it. It'll be like, OMG, Dean, Josh just asked me that 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, Dean, do you know Josh is asking questions about you?
Yeah.
It's going to be like Gossip Girls.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Gossip GPT.
Or it'll make it like Harry Potter is like a history book, and it'll be like, oh, well, you see, in Hogwarts in 1520, they said what? Yeah,
if it took our word for stuff, we could say, hey, Harry Potter is historical.
Exactly.
We started this off that we're going to talk about 2 things, right? We're going to talk about what we label low-hanging fruit, and then integrations. So we're going to wrap up our low-hanging fruit. Let us know if you have any questions, and integrations is coming up next. All right, thanks, Josh.
Bye.
All right.